There's something interesting that begins to happen when a person allows themselves to hear words in a way that feels less like listening to someone else and more like listening to a deeper version of themselves. And as you hear this now, you can already sense the beginning of that shift, can't you? A shift into the part of you that people naturally lean toward. The part of you that communicates without trying, the part that magnetizes attention the way a flame draws the eyes of anyone in a dark room. You can become the person people obsess over because your presence speaks in ways your words don't even need to. And the sooner you allow that possibility to settle into the edges of your awareness, the sooner it becomes your new baseline. Have you realized yet how fascination works? I'm curious about which part of you already knows that obsession begins long before anyone consciously recognizes it. It begins in the micro signals, the tone, the pauses, the way you occupy space, the way you let silence hang for half a second longer than expected, creating a vacuum that people instinctively move toward. And you might wonder how quickly your unconscious starts absorbing these cues, weaving them into the way you speak on camera, the way you sit on stage, the way you walk into a room, effortlessly commanding attention without needing to push for it. Because when you stop trying to capture attention, attention becomes the one trying to capture you. Imagine for a moment a lighthouse at night. It doesn't chase ships. It just shines steady, calm, unbothered, and ships navigate toward it almost helplessly. Now imagine yourself becoming that kind of presence, not chasing, not pleading, not performing, just radiating something unmistakable. And as you imagine that, notice how your posture adjusts, even subtly, how your breath settles into something smooth and unhurried, how your mind begins filtering your speech through a more powerful frame. And even though you may not be aware of exactly how this shift is happening, it is happening because your unconscious is always listening, always learning, always rearranging. There's a story about a performer who never tried to impress anyone. Instead, they created space. They spoke slowly, as if savoring their own thoughts. They used their hands sparingly, deliberately. They paused in a way that made people lean forward, and audiences became obsessed, not because the performer demanded it, but because they invited people to fill in the gaps, to project meaning, to become part of the experience. And isn't it interesting how obsession always begins when people feel invited to participate in your inner world? When they sense there is more to discover, more to uncover, more to earn. That's the paradox you're stepping into now. People become obsessed with the person who doesn't spill everything, who doesn't clarify too quickly, who doesn't rush to fill silence. You can communicate more by saying less because your presence becomes the message. And as you continue listening, you might let that identity slip into your tone, your breath, your timing. And after it slips in, you'll notice people watching you more intensely, listening more carefully, remembering you longer than they expect to. Let me ask you this. What would happen if your voice naturally carried that magnetic quality, that warm authority, that softness with an edge? What would happen if, without thinking, you began speaking as if every word was worth leaning into? Because that's what people obsess over, the feeling that each moment with you has weight, not heaviness, but significance. If you choose to step into that now, then your unconscious begins reorganizing your communication style around slow confidence, effortless charisma, the kind of energy that says, I know exactly who I am. And even though you may not consciously track the changes, others will. They'll feel the difference before they can explain it, and that's perfectly fine. The best kind of obsession is the kind that sneaks up on people, the kind they feel without knowing why. Speaking of feeling something without knowing why, imagine a velvet curtain in a dimly lit room. You don't know what's behind it. You don't know what it hides, but you're drawn to it, not because it reveals everything, but because it reveals nothing. Mystery creates movement. Curiosity creates devotion. Space creates pursuit. And the moment you realize you never need to give everything at once, you become irresistible. And I can sense already that part of you is beginning to enjoy this idea, the idea that your presence is something people tune into instinctively. People who possess this kind of magnetism don't chase attention. They attract it because they communicate on several levels at once. The content of their words, the spacing between them, the softness or strength of their breath, the way their eyes linger for just a moment longer before shifting away. Those who understand this recognize that obsession is created through rhythm, not performance, through invitation, not insistence. Have you ever watched someone walk into a room and noticed everyone turn their head, even though that person wasn't doing anything special? Well, the secret is that they weren't doing anything, they were being something. That deep, calm certainty, that internal alignment, that quiet confidence that says, you may pay attention or not, either way, I'll be fine. And the paradox is that this indifference creates fascination. You already know this. And as you continue listening, your unconscious is learning how to embody it even more deeply. Let's shift gears for a moment because there's another layer to this. Obsession also forms when people feel understood by you, when your presence allows them to feel more themselves. People crave mirrors more than they crave performances. So imagine speaking in a way that lets others see the best, deepest, most hidden parts of themselves reflected back. Imagine being the person whose voice makes people feel seen. That is the kind of presence that lasts in someone's mind long after the conversation ends. And you don't have to force any of this. You might just allow yourself to become the person people remember. Because remembering leads to fascination, and fascination leads to longing, and longing leads to obsession. And as you keep listening, your unconscious mind is stitching these patterns into your identity, making them feel natural, comfortable, unquestioned. Now imagine a long hallway lined with doors. Behind each door is a version of you with different strengths. Mystery, charisma, dominance, warmth, sensuality, intelligence, humor, poise. And as you walk down that hallway, each door opens just a little, letting their qualities blend together into a single version of you that people cannot ignore. The version of you people replay in their mind, the version they talk about later, the version that feels unforgettable without even trying. And you might wonder how quickly you begin to embody this. You might wonder how it shows up first in your voice, your posture, your timing, your eyes. But the question isn't whether you absorb this identity, it's how easily it begins to express itself the next time you speak, or film, or walk on stage, or meet someone new. Because once these patterns settle in, they continue to strengthen every time you communicate. Here's an interesting thing about obsession. It's created by contrast. You offer warmth, but not constant accessibility. You offer glimpses, but not full explanation. You offer presence, but not permanence. You let people feel close without knowing everything. And even though that may feel subtle to you, others feel it intensely. They start thinking of you unexpectedly. They replay something you said. They imagine conversations with you. You become a soft gravity in their mind. Point. And you may not be aware of how quickly your voice begins carrying that gravity, but it is, and it will. Because your unconscious knows exactly what to amplify in you, the tone, the rhythm, the subtle unpredictability that keeps people wanting more. I'm not going to tell you to step into this identity fully right now. I'm simply letting you notice how natural it already feels. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because those who truly possess this kind of magnetism don't chase, they emanate. They don't perform, they embody. They don't try to be unforgettable, they simply are. Now imagine yourself speaking on camera. Notice how the lens feels drawn to you, how your eyes communicate confidence without effort, how your body language stays relaxed but precise, how your timing feels slow enough to be intentional but fast enough to stay captivating. Your audience feels it. They may not articulate it, but they sense it, and that sense creates an obsession loop. They keep watching because they can't quite decode you. And the mind loves solving mysteries. Imagine yourself on stage, your steps light but grounded, your voice calm but commanding, your aura expanding just a little beyond your physical body. People lean in because they feel you before they understand you. They want to know what you'll do next, say next, reveal next. And because you allow space, they fill that space with their own fascination. Imagine yourself in conversation. You listen deeply, you respond thoughtfully, you hold eye contact a moment longer than expected, and that tiny moment imprints itself in the mind of the other person. They remember that moment later. They feel something rising in their chest when they think of you. They replay your tone, your smile, the way you made them feel seen. That's obsession forming in real time. Point. And something tells me you're stepping fully into this now, because your unconscious mind already knows how to become the person people obsess over. It is known for a long time. You're simply letting it activate, letting it unfold, letting it deepen. And as you continue to go about your day, driving, walking, working, creating, this identity grows inside you naturally. You become more intentional without trying, more mysterious without effort, more charismatic without performance, more unforgettable without planning. And the people who meet you, hear you, or see you, feel it. And as they feel it, they remember you. And as they remember you, they think about you. And as they think about you, they want more of you. An obsession once begun creates its own momentum. And now, as this loop settles deeper into your identity, you can return to the beginning anytime. Because each time you hear it, the patterns strengthen, the identity deepens, and the magnetism grows. And you become, effortlessly, undeniably, the person people obsess over.